We finally made it. You don't have to go to bed and worry anymore. We are at the start of the Buccaneers training camp practice this morning, 8:30 a.m. Be there or be square. The Bucs will be on the field. Who knows where this ends, if it makes it all the way to, say, February or late January. But, yeah, it's finally here, man. And, you know, I couldn't be less excited. No, I'm very excited. For the fans, not for myself, because I'm going to be walking on the sun. Although it looks like the way the forecast is, we might be inside for a few days, which is fine with me.
Well, if it's anything like tonight, and I went to the Rays game, first time going to Steinbrenner to watch the Rays as a fan. I've
in the
worked many
summer,
games.
right?
Well, no, that's actually the first time as a fan.
Period. Okay.
Yeah,
gotcha.
I've worked a lot of games, so I've been there.
Yeah.
But when I work, I'm also halfway in the air conditioning. But
how comfortable, or I should say, uncomfortable was it?
Early there wasn't much of a breeze, so it was pretty uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Later there picked up a little breeze in that, and then it wasn't bad at all. As the sun went down. So, but it was cool to watch outdoor baseball as a fan in town. I mean, seriously.
Yeah, we've not done that. I mean,
No.
until this year. So
Yeah.
I guess that is a new dynamic, and the heat is obviously a factor. The rain delays they had the other day, still waiting on a washout, but they started this game a half hour early, I think, because they were anticipating storms.
That's correct. Yeah, they moved it up to 7:05 to avoid that. So,
yeah,
which I was grateful of, and you're grateful of too, because we can record it.
Exactly, it saves us a half hour. Yeah, and good on the Rays. They managed to not blow the entire 4-0 lead and hung on to beat a very bad White Sox team 4-3. But we'll get into that and whether they're going to be buyers. We got your mailbag questions coming up. Got a few of those as well. Start with the Buccaneers and who is not going to be participating in training camp. We told you the other day that you would not see wide receiver Chris Godwin, that you would not see tackle Tristan Wirfs, and that was confirmed when the Bucs announced they actually have 5 players on the active physically unable to perform list. And what that means is the active PUP list means that at any time that they are ready, they can be then practicing, and they do count towards the 90-player roster limit, but they are eligible to be activated anytime before they get to 53, before they get to the roster cuts. So that's not a surprise. Other guys that also will start on the active PUP includes tackle Silas Zanzi. We've got guard Suo Peta. Remember, he was on this team till he tore his ACL a year ago. Still not quite ready. Michael Pratt has had a shoulder injury, I believe. Didn't participate in the mandatory mini camps and things like that. So he's still beat up. And then, of course, we've talked about Chris Godwin and Wirfs, as I mentioned. Some surprises here. There's an active non-football injury list. I'm not sure what this injury is or how it occurred, but it was not related to football. And that would include linebacker Anthony Walker Jr., the Miami Dolphins linebacker who could play a big role for this team. As they look to try to, shore up that inside linebacker spot. And then placed on the active non-football illness list is nose tackle Desmond Watson, the really big guy from the University of Florida, which is like 460 pounds. He's obviously got some kind of illness going on. So you'd think that would be short term. But at any point, all of these guys, can be activated and anytime before the 53-man roster cuts. So no real surprises. Obviously we'll find out what happened to Walker. We know about Wirfs. We know about, Chris Godwin and things like that. But on the whole, not bad. The danger was starting with, 2 guys that are such big-time players for them, Godwin and Wirfs, is that you've not had your first practice, which will come, Wednesday morning. And they won't be in pads and there won't be a ton of contact. But when you're playing football and you're moving around, things happen. And you got rookies out there and free agents trying to make the club, trying to earn a spot, if not on the 53, but on the practice squad. So there's a lot of effort, and some guys go harder than others. And you want to have a certain decorum and a certain etiquette. And not every young guy knows how to practice that way. So you're going to have more injuries. And once they start playing preseason games, you're going to have more injuries. So, when you got 2 feet in the hole already with Wirfs and Godwin, you just, as a football team, you just don't want to compound that and start getting guys more hurt as you play. But that's the game. It's a game of attrition. And, we'll see how they're able to practice and what they're able to do out there. And Look, it's only an hour and a half, hour 45, 2 hours, something like that per day. Then every fourth day, I think they have to be off, and it's not heavy lifting, but it is hot, and it is football, and things can happen. And so, but here we go. Here we go. It's football season. I am glad it's here. Actually, not glad I have to work. Not glad vacation is over, and I know what a marathon it is. But it begins with one step. There's been some real memorable first days and second days, and I still go back to the year that Ryan Jensen on day 2 of training camp in shorts and 5 plays before the end of a 2-minute drill to end practice, got his knee torn up, and what became a career-ending injury. And those are the ones that those are the snipers that are out there behind every corner for every team, and it's just a question of who's going to get it. So, but hey, it's football, and a lot of expectations.
Let's not forget another second day one. Divorce papers served.
Yes, that's true. that was a red letter day for Tom Brady that year. I thought he was never coming back. I mean, it's really, I can distinctly remember. Of course, he had retired, and then 40 days later he unretired, and then we go to training camp on the second day. Those two things happened. He was, lost his starting center Ryan Jensen, and as soon as it happened, I mean, you knew it was really bad, right? Like it was one of those injuries where everybody knew. They got the cart and everything, but everybody knew like this is not something he's going to come back from. And you could see it on their faces. And Brady goes to a knee, and he's got his head down between his legs, and he's just like, oh man. And then we find out that he's not going to be. He doesn't come back the next day, and I'm like, holy cow! So like he's excused after he sees his center go down. There's something going on personally. I was calling his agent and anybody else that would talk to me, because I was almost convinced that Tom had witnessed that scenario, and it had decided almost on the spot that, like, you know what? I know I unretired, but I was right the first time. I'm just going to stay. I'm not going to come back. I'm done. And he did come back. And then we found out there was a lot more going on personally. And then he left again, I think, for like 11 days, and in the middle of training camp in the preseason. And that's when we went to Indianapolis, and he had the post game. We talked to him. He's like, I'm 45. I got a lot of bleep going on. And we found out what the bleep was. And it wasn't just that, too. I think, as much as obviously the divorce was a big thing, but I think both Giselle and him, quite frankly, they were worried about, if you remember, they were advertising the cryptocurrency, and its founder was indicted and eventually sent to prison. And I think there was some concern about what exposure they had legally too, from what I understand. But regardless, things change really quickly out there sometimes when you see players go down and players walk out. I remember a 5th round pick that just didn't come back to practice one time, like he was just retired from football. It's interesting. You just never know what you're going to get. And at the risk of sounding like Forrest Gump, but it's true. So, it's a long preseason, not as long as it used to be. There's 3 games, not 4. They'll have the extra week after the end of the 3rd preseason game. This team is going to go to Pittsburgh early, like on a Wednesday. They're going to practice against the Steelers, I think, one day, and then play on a Saturday night. And then they have a practice here against the Titans, I believe, later in the preseason. So before their game. So there's going to be some interruptions, which is good. It breaks the monotony of training camp. And that's the thing you battle. You battle the boredom. You battle, like most of these guys have to be in shape when they get here. Some won't, surprisingly, but most of them will have been doing stuff and working out. And then you get into the grind of it all. And it's, I can't imagine. I remember this. I wasn't covering teams then, but they used to have 6 preseason games. Like that's an eternity, right? And you never get to the start of the season. And even with 3 and the extra week before the start of the season seems like an eternity. You just want to get going. And eventually I don't think they'll have preseason at all. I think they'll have a couple of weeks of ramp up and maybe some joint practices, and then they'll start their 18-game season, or what will probably be one time a 20-game season. But for now, football is back, and college football, to be playing games that matter before long. I mean, that's only a few weeks away, I think.
I think we're 4.5 weeks from week 0.
Yeah, week 0. That's right. That's right. We'll have to talk some college football, maybe with Matt Baker, maybe with Joey Knight. We'll have to see who's available. But I was listening to Kirk Herbstreit was on one of the podcasts, and he was just lauding the Florida Gators, and just what a job they did really turning things around. I mean, it was getting dark, dark and stormy at Florida until the end of the season. And, DJ Lagway really, helped spark that team and more or less kind of resurrected the program. They upset some really tough teams. I believe they beat LSU. I know they kept Ole Miss out of the playoffs with a victory there. So they kind of won out at the end of the year, beat Florida State. So they had a lot of momentum at the end of the year if they can keep that going.
The hard part for them is they have the toughest schedule in college football.
They really do, yeah.
It's been no favors for them.
No,
the last 2 years.
No, it's always tough. But
the momentum they have from last season, you hope carries over.
Yeah,
and so you get a good start to the season.
Right. And I would have, I would have bet you that Billy Napier wouldn't have survived last year. I mean, halfway through they were terrible from a record standpoint. Just didn't seem to have any life. And then to his credit and the players' credit, because about that time guys start looking at where they can transfer. They started kicking people's butts. It started with the defense,
Yep.
And then the offense made just enough plays. They kept games close in the fourth quarter, and then Lagway would make a run or a throw, and something would happen, and they won some games late, and then they got confidence, and they felt like they could play with anybody, and they could. They played with Georgia, didn't beat them, but played with them. And so they, we'll see if they can start that way this year. But you're right, man. That conference is brutal. The Big Ten and the SEC is so superior to any of these other conferences right now, including the ACC. And this is, I don't know how we got into college football, which is fine. I love college football, so let's talk about it. But like the big team, the favorites this year that I keep hearing in college football is Penn State. Ohio State.
They have most of that team back and their quarterback back, which, you look in the Big Ten, Ohio State's got a new quarterback. Oregon's got a new quarterback.
Right.
Michigan's got a new quarterback. Thank goodness. They needed one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, in the Big Ten, Penn State's got Drew Aller back, and
right.
They got a lot. But the question is, can James Franklin do it?
No. I'll be happy to tell you, no. It's weird, And I've met the guy. He's a nice enough guy, and if you want to win 10 or 11 games every year, here's your guy. He'll recruit. He'll get good players. They'll be competitive. But if they have to beat Michigan or they have to beat Ohio State, they're not going to win. They're not going to win the big games. And, they might come close to winning, but something will happen that'll decide it at the end, and then they always seem to lose. And that seems to be good enough in Happy Valley, He can recruit. We know that. That's why they're picked to win this year. But I don't know what it's going to take for Franklin to get them over the hump and into a natty. I don't know what it's going to take at all, to be honest with you.
Well, but much like any coach, you can't win it until you do.
Yeah, that's true.
They kind of said about Jim Harbaugh for a while at Michigan too.
Yeah, and then he couldn't beat Ohio State, and then he couldn't lose to Ohio State.
Yeah,
right?
Well, but then he couldn't win the playoff because they lost 2 years in a row in the first game.
That's right.
And then they end up winning it. And so now he's a national champion, but he couldn't do it until he did it.
Until they stole the other team's signals, and then he did it.
Well, you do what you got to do.
And then he ran off to the Chargers. Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, and you're right. I mean, until you do it, who knows?
Ryan Day was the same way.
Yeah. No, Ryan Day was on his way out, man.
Yeah.
He managed to stay one step ahead of the hangman.
And, maybe Billy Napier's the same thing.
Yeah. There's a hell of a lot of talent in the Big Ten. There's a lot of talent in the SEC. Those guys are going to beat up on each other all the time. And but they're the two best conferences. I think they had Texas and Penn State as
those are the top favorites. Two pretty much, and then you get you get Ohio State, you get Georgia, you get Bama, you get
sure.
Oregon.
Right.
It's all the common teams up there.
Yep. The blue bloods for the most part.
Yep.
You know. And that's NIL. That's that's all those things that people seem to hate about college football, but that's kind of where we're at right now. So, oh Nelly, I can't wait till they're rocking and rolling and the big uglies and all that going on up there in Michigan, Ohio State, SEC.
By
It's
the
gonna
way,
be
you get
great.
Ohio State, Texas week 1.
Now that game, that's a monstrous game, right? Like
Yeah.
that's just like shouldn't that be? I don't know that I want to see it on week 1. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know that I. That's kind of like you go for a big steak dinner, but you eat the dessert first. You know what I mean? And get
Yep.
kind of fat. Don't really want to eat the rest. I'd kind of like to see that about week 6. Like put it right in the middle where we know what both teams are. Because here's the other thing: while you might have the most health early in the season to start off, week 1, um, neither team is going to be at full speed. I mean, they have to you have to play a little bit to kind of get the feet under you and find out who you are and the personality. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. And then you got Arch Manning at Texas, and that's going to be a huge story all year. So yeah, college football is fun, man. I'm telling you, for me personally, because I'm on the road a good bit. Nothing like baseball, but like half the games are obviously not here. But there's nothing what I value because of the way the NFL week is pretty much you're going 6 or 7 days. If you have to travel, you're working 7 days. If you don't, you're working 6. And that 6th day at home, it's the sacred Saturdays, and that means college football, right? And you can wake up knowing that the Bucks are playing at home, and you can go and take a bike ride. And when you get that first cold front, that probably about December 1st, or second week in December, maybe if you're lucky, go take a bike ride, come back, watch College Game Day, and just crank it up all day with college football, and then get up the next morning. You got a Bucks game at 1 or 4. It's just that when the fall is the most beautiful time down here, I think. Fall, early spring, and when the weather when that humidity finally gets out of here, which is very fleeting even when it does. But that's the fun of it, man. College football is to me is just like so much fun on those Saturdays, and you can watch them all the way from noon kickoff all the way to midnight, just about.
Yeah, we don't have Pac-12 after dark anymore, but
No,
although
that's
Pac-12's
true.
coming back now, all of a sudden they've added a bunch of teams, and
They are. It's not the Pac-12 we know, but yeah, they definitely are adding some teams. So yeah, we're looking forward to college football. But first, it's the Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield and all those guys going out there, and I continue to see these great movies that the Bucks are producing about the 50th year anniversary. Really interesting one. If you're into the X's and O's, they had Tony Dungy with Todd Bowles, who was explaining the defense he used to shut Patrick Mahomes out of the end zone in the Super Bowl 55. It's just very detailed. It's kind of like over my head a little bit. But just how they made the adjustment from when they played Kansas City earlier in the year, and Tyreek Hill had, and I'm not making this up, over 200 yards receiving in the first quarter. And what they did to kind of shut him down, and reliving that and comparing it to some of the teams that Tony had in the defenses. It was really, really fascinating. The one thing they said, and I keep thinking this when I was watching this, it was interesting because Dungy didn't get it done right. Like they brought in John Gruden, and he added pieces on offense and held him accountable, and the defense was even better that year. They scored 9 touchdowns and they win the Super Bowl. But that defense was something that Dungy had really built. But then the one thing that Bull said when he was going over this on the chalkboard about what they did, he goes, he says, defense wins championships. And he's right. He's right. And I don't know. The one thing I would say about this Buccaneers team is they don't have a championship defense. They don't. The Philadelphia Eagles did. Obviously, they, kept Patrick Mahomes and those guys bottled up the way the Bucs did the year that they won the Super Bowl. I mean, it would take amazing performances, breakout, defensive player of the year type performances from Hassan Reddick or Kalijah Cansey or Yaya Diaby or Antoine Winfield or one of the new corners that they're going to introduce. I just don't think that, in this day and age, if championships win Super Bowls, that's where the Bucs are going to fall short again. And I would tell you that they could have gone further last year if the defense was better, but for the offense, turning the ball over and not finishing drives and doing what they did against the Commanders. So the offense was to blame in an awful lot of those losses because of the turnovers.
If they can cut the turnovers down,
yeah, that would help.
That's going to help that defense tremendously.
Oh, of course it would. Yeah,
and not just the interceptions. Baker's fumbles were a problem.
Fumbles were a problem. He led the NFL with 16 interceptions. You cannot do that. And then the critical times and critical places on the field, like we saw in the playoffs. I mean, those are the things that they should be thinking about every day. And I think they are. I think they're at a point as a team. It's like, yeah, it's great to win the division. That's not what we're doing here. We got to take more steps than this. And to do that, you got to be perfect. You got to be perfect. And, watching these videos have been really interesting. But when Bowles said that, and it's a cliche, but it's a cliche. Cliches are there for a reason because they're usually true, right? So like when he said that, it just hit me that it's like, yeah, they're not a championship defense. And where's the hope? Well, the hope should be in the players they've added, right? Hassan Reddick, there's hope. The new corners, Benjamin Morrison, maybe moving Tyke Smith to safety, having Antoine Winfield come back healthy. Because he was as good a player, as there was on defense anywhere in the league the year before he got hurt. Levante David trying to get another year, squeeze another year out of him. Have Yaya Diaby or Cansey step up, Vita Vea be more dominant, more consistent. Like I can paint you a picture where
Servassier Dennis has to stay healthy.
There's a huge
the way
key.
They think.
Huge key is Servassier Dennis because they completed so many passes over the middle of the field, and Levante needs that, right? And I can paint you a picture, but everything I just mentioned would have to happen, and those guys would have to be many of them at Pro Bowl levels, I think, for this team to win a championship if, in fact, defense wins championships. Now, they're going to score points. I'm convinced they're going to score points, and I haven't seen, Josh Grizzard call one play, right? And neither has anybody else for that matter. But I think I know what they have, and I know they know the scheme, and they're light years ahead of where they were the last 2 years, 3 years, 4 years in terms of scheme. The quarterback you feel really good about if he can stay healthy, you can protect him. And you do have some big pieces missing, but you're going to get them back, or at least that's the schedule so far. So they'll score points, but championship defense, I don't know. Unless those corners, step up and become great. I mean, they could become great, as rookies. And you still got Zion McCallum, who's the best of them, I think. And that would help the pass rush if you could play a little tighter coverage. And I think that's what Bowles' eureka moment was. I mean, you just look at the draft and you see where they used a second and a third round pick on defensive backs. That's a tell. That's like, they only had 7 interceptions last year as a team, right? 7. And that was 29th in the league, for the fewest, which is terrible. And so you've got to get turnovers. You've got to get more interceptions. You got to play better defense. You've got to get pressure on the quarterback. You got to get the quarterback on the ground. You need more sacks, and not by bringing, extra linebackers or defensive backs. Like, you need to get home in 4 and play coverage. So we'll find out what they're going to be here early on in the season, but that's the one thing. There's a lot of expectations about the Bucs, but that's the one thing I would say. Yeah, they may be a draft away, or maybe one of these guys in their third year, Cansey or Diaby, maybe they hit it, right? Like maybe they burst onto the scene after in their third season. Now, I've seen that happen. Usually greatness shows up right away. It just does. But Warren Sapp had a terrible, by his standards, had a terrible rookie season. A lot of that was the scheme and Sam Weich's or Floyd Peters' defense and things like that. But he didn't hit it right away, and yet he was a fantastic player. Derek Brooks was really, really good as a rookie. He wasn't Derek Brooks, though. So, but if some of those guys show up and just play great, and Ronnie Barber didn't even play as a rookie, then, the guys that are in their third year now, if they grow up and start producing at a high level, then they got a chance. But that's what it's going to take. I think defensively they're not as good as they play on a very uneven field. But you're right, the offense can help them by not turning the ball over, by finishing drives. But I just don't know how many more points you can score if you're averaging over 29. You know what I mean? Everything being the same, to go out there and average 29 points a game this year, you should win 13 games, right? You should win at least 12. And the difference is that wasn't always enough for them, like that, they gave up a lot too. So we'll see. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a story, hopefully. And, if you're a Bucs fan, you just don't want to see anything torpedo them early on. We'll talk about the Rays in a minute, who have a chance to win another series, this time against the White Sox. But first, get on down to Breitling Boutique. You're going to that Bucs practice. Yeah, that's just a couple blocks away from International Plaza, and that's where you're going to find Breitling Boutique. Go to the center of the mall, second floor. It is an amazing store, and if you are in the market at all or have considered trying to get the best timepiece of your life, this is where you're going to find it, in Breitling Boutique. They have gorgeous watches for men, the Chronomats, the Navatimers, and for women as well. These are sports watches. They are durable, they're beautiful, and your wife or your girlfriend can have a tremendous array of color wristbands to choose from. The customer service is great, as I mentioned, but they're used to dealing with a lot of professional athletes. You might see a Buccaneer or a Tampa Bay Lightning player in there or whatnot, but they're going to treat you just like the celebrity that you are, teach you all about their products, and you're going to come out of there with a fantastic watch. And while supplies last, and that's the key, because they've been going fast now for a while, they are celebrating the NFL's 104th year anniversary with all 32 teams in the NFL have team watches for men. These are Chronomat watches. They got the color of the teams. Colors are on the face of the watch. They got the logos. You have to see them. Go to tampabay.com, see a picture of the Buccaneers team watch. It's at Breitling Boutique. They're in International Plaza Mall. Make sure you let them know that you heard about it on Sports Day Tampa Bay. All right, so the Rays could win a series, but I'm not sure that the injury news is going the right way right now, Steve.
No, Brendan Lau, as feared, on the 10-day IL.
Mm-hmm.
So they're hoping for the minimum, which is what they always say when someone goes on the IL.
Until it becomes 15 and then 60.
Yeah. And then Shane McClanahan being, I don't know, shut down yet, but not making his rehab start Thursday.
I think he's being shut down. I mean, I don't know for how long. It feels that way anyway.
This is now a different thing, not the nerve thing in this. So now they still don't have the nerve thing figured out. And now there's something new and else. And now he's not going to make the rehab start Thursday. Kevin Cash says McClanahan's frustrated. He went to Twitter and kind of said the same thing.
Well, this is sad. Shane posted this on Twitter. He said, "Rays fans, I know you're frustrated. I am too. This process has been anything but easy coming back from a completely freak injury. I want you to know that I'm busting my ass and doing everything I can to be back to who you know I can be and what I know I can be." I read that and I thought a couple things. One, it's not going the right direction. But two, he doesn't have to apologize for being hurt. You know what I mean? Like, I think people they're probably frustrated, as no one's more frustrated than he is, obviously. But it's almost like he knows, like, I know, it's another setback. It's the report's not good again. Like, hey, I'm doing everything I can, but no one ever doubted that. I mean, who wants to pitch more than Shane McClanahan? This was their ace left-hander, a guy that threw almost triple digits. You don't get that in the big leagues very much. And, for what he's had to go through the last couple of years, you feel for the guy. He's had 2 Tommy Johns in his life, and now he's dealing with this, and whatever it is, it just feels like it's not going to work out. It just feels like one step forward, 2 steps back, like something keeps knocking him down, and not for nothing, but like we're almost into August now, like we're running out of runway here, and I wonder, like that's got to be part of the consideration, at least when the Rays are trying to decide, are we buyers, are we sellers, what assets do we have that we can improve our team with? If McClanahan were coming back and you were going to have him on the mound every 5 days, then you could look at your starting pitching staff and say, hey, maybe we can get something for some of these guys, shore up the bullpen, another bat, right? But without McClanahan, you don't have that capital as much anymore.
No, and the other part too is, even if you think you're still going to get McClanahan back, now you're talking almost like Drew Rasmussen last year, where there's not enough time to stretch him out.
That's
you
correct.
May have to go to a bullpen.
That's correct. Great point.
Yeah. Depending on how long they shut him down for here. Ryan Pepio was on T-Kraz's show and said maybe it might be a little bit of dead arm. Now, he was just kind of speculating and guessing, but that to the nerve to this, like, you may not get him back as a starter this year. He may end up, if he gets back, 1 or 2 inning guy.
Right. Well, and Rasmussen is already no more than a 5 inning guy.
Yeah, they're slow playing his innings a little bit. Although tonight, 3 perfect innings, and then the 4th, got away from him quick.
It did. It really did. It escalated quickly. Fortunately, their bullpen this time, good for the bullpen, because they've been the giving up the leads during this bad stretch, but they did get it done. They nailed it down and managed to win 4-3. But look, I feel for the guy. There's nothing worse for an athlete than to be injured. Like, you're not part of the team. You're working on the side. You're with doctors. You're doing all these training stuff, and then to get so close to a rehab start, which is the kind of one of the last steps before you make it back to the majors, and then to get it scrubbed. It's kind of like, it's like a launch to the moon. It's like you're all ready to go, and then the launch window, it's been scrubbed. We're gonna have to wait another week. But I thought it was interesting in this era. It kind of shows you where we're at in terms of social media, and the awareness of what fans are saying, or how you're affected by that. Because first of all, why would you care? You know what I mean? Like, you're doing everything you can. Obviously, it means as much to you or more than it does anybody else. It's your career. I mean, this is how you make your living. But it's very thoughtful of him to kind of say, hey, I know you're frustrated. I've not seen that, right? Like, I've not seen a guy come out and just say, yeah, this sucks. I agree, but I'm trying, man. I'm trying. I'm doing everything I can. Not that anybody doubted that. I don't know. It just struck me as odd.
Congrats to Chandler Simpson. Now the rookie, he has the longest rookie hitting streak, and now he's got the stolen base record for the Rays franchise.
Yeah.
He's I think he's 2 behind Caballero now for the league lead.
Yeah. He's an amazing player. He's a spark plug. You'd love to see him in the postseason. The pressure he puts on defenses, the bat to ball, the amount of contact he makes. Not a big strikeout guy, really, to say the least. Has come up with some clutch hits, made another good catch in center field, playing a much better outfield, I think, than he was the first time around. Mm-hmm. So you almost made another spectacular diving catch, but the ball kind of popped out of his mitt there at the end. He's fun to watch, man. He is really an electric player. And in an era where, chicks dig the long ball and everybody's trying to launch, it's kind of fun to see a guy that can play small ball and just like literally run circles around the bases. He just kind of like, okay, he's on. He's going to go. He's going to go. We know he's going to go. Yeah, he went. Yeah, he's safe. It's like, can't throw him out. He's just too good of a base runner, too good of a base stealer. So just a ton of energy too that he brings to the whole team. So yeah, he's good for him. It's fun to watch. They've been playing baseball. Wow. I mean, since what, 98 here.
Yep.
I know it's not a ton of bases. Like, what has he got? Under 30 now? Is he less than 30?
I think he's got 30. I think he's at 30.
He's right at 30. Yeah. So, it's not 100, but it's a lot, and it's the most ever for a rookie. So I think that's great. They've had some great performances, but you're just not going to get there if Brandon Lau is down. The
Hassan Kim
shortstop
didn't play
Hassan
today.
Kim didn't
Yep.
play. Yeah, I mean that's frustrating. He's one of your highest paid, or is your highest paid non-pitcher, right, on the roster, and he's just one DL stint after the other lately.
It was interesting too. The Rays just picked up or traded for an outfielder.
Yeah,
that the Braves had DFA'd earlier in the week, so they traded for cash considerations.
So does that mean they're going to part with one, like Morel or somebody?
Well, I mean,
right
now he replaces Lau on the roster, so you're short an infielder.
Well, but here's what I think, as Peter King would say. I think that Palacios is taking I heard that he's doing some work in the infield.
Yeah, he's going to work in the outfield and infield. He just started a rehab assignment, and DeLuca is on his rehab assignment now.
Right. So if you got a guy like Palacios that can play the infield in a pinch.
I mean, this is one where the Rays are taking a chance on a guy. It doesn't cost you much.
Yeah.
Maybe they like something about him. They think they can change what the Braves couldn't do, or maybe someone they part with in a couple weeks anyway. But it's interesting that they added an outfitter. Granted, he's right-handed hitter, which they need right-handed hitters.
They need right-hand bats.
But with DeLuca and Palacios getting ready to come back, it was kind of interesting.
How far are we from the trade deadline?
A week.
Just 1 week?
I mean, the 31st, so 8 days.
And 8 days, what could change? A lot? Nothing?
Well, you're going to go on the road and play at Cincinnati and at the Yankees.
Yeah. Well, those two series will tell you a lot, I think, because those are two top teams, or playoff type teams, maybe. The Rays aren't that far out looking in. I mean, they're game and a half from the third wild card, something like that. But they've got to get going. And this, I'm telling you, I just don't see how they survived this road trip when you got 19 out of 22, and the 3 you got home at Steinbrenner's against the L.A. Dodgers, who are immeasurably better than you, spend 4 times more than you. Not to say that they win every game, because they've hit a tough streak for themselves recently, but that's not much of a break, right? When you're going on the road as much as these guys are going to be on the road. So I think the Cincinnati and the Yankee series will tell us a hell of a lot, and certainly by the time they come back and play the Dodgers, we're going to know a lot. But if that deadline's coming up, I wouldn't be a betting man. I know you hate to run up the white flag. I mean, you do, but you got to look at, and it all depends on what they're being offered, right? I mean, they're going to just give away players.
No.
But, if they can get some real value for some of these guys that they think they can, still be competitive and part with a few players, then they'll do it. If not, they won't. And they've got some good arms, that they can have bigger roles on their staff that they brought up from Durham. And, there's some stuff you could do maybe with the pitching staff, but position players, I don't know who you're going to deal. That's somebody you would miss. Does somebody want Morel? I doubt it.
Well, but do you trade a Brendan Lau?
What about a Caballero?
Caballero's definitely one that could get traded.
Yeah, Lau would be a tough one. Yeah, that's a tough one for me.
You could trade Hassan Kim if someone
would take his contract.
He has a player option for next year, I believe. At $16 million.
It's his option. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, Brandon Lau, say what you want, man. They're a different team when he's out of that lineup. Yep. They just are.
Could you trade Yandy Diaz? No, I don't think they will. And there's been reports that they're not going to, but
I don't know who you would say, literally on this team, who's untradeable on this team.
I don't think
third baseman.
I think there's a price for him.
Yeah.
I don't think any team would come up with that price, but I don't think there's anybody on this team that's untouchable.
I don't either. I really don't. I don't either. I think if somebody makes you a good offer and you can get prospects and you like who you're getting in return, and you consider it.
Yeah, but Caminero with lots of years of team control, that's very hard to get away from the Rays.
Yeah, team control, upside, obviously, the power at all fields. I mean, he does so much. Could improve defensively, but he's still young.
Yeah, I don't think Chandler Simpson's one that, would they trade him for the right price? Yes, they're not looking to, but
I'll sell my house for the right price.
Someone wants to give you Aaron Judge for Chandler Simpson, you're going to say yes.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Probably not going to happen, but yeah.
No, it won't. But
Yeah. But no, I agree with you. I don't think there's anybody that's completely out of bounds. But it does, the danger of it is that, like, when you're a seller, sometimes it kind of sends a signal, right or wrong, that we're not really in it to win it this year. That the general managers and the clubs have looked at us and said, we think you might make a wild card, but it's not a given. So
But
we're going to still try to win.
What if you trade a Zach Littell to get a right-handed hitting outfielder?
Well, I don't think that's a bad thing if you're
Right.
going to use some of the guys you have up here now working out of the bullpen.
They may sell, but also gain at the same time. Where
that's what you want to do.
Now either McClanahan or Joe Boyle jumps into the rotation, or Ian Seymour.
Yeah, I mean, if you can make the best deals are the ones where both teams benefit. So if you can do it from a position of strength, when you got Boyle, or you got somebody coming in there behind him that you're real confident in, then absolutely. Try to get another bat. Try to get something to help you this year. Because I think they still have a chance to make a wild card. But I'm not real confident. This road trip, I'm telling you, man, this road trip coming up is going to tell the tale. It is. If they're still hanging around, they're still within a couple games of a wild card, I'll say, okay, they can maybe hit their stride at the end, get a little kick and get in it. But that's a lot of games to play in a short span, and with only 3 at home, and they're against the Dodgers. Don't feel good about them at all. Well, the Rays will continue their series, actually wrap it up against the Chicago White Sox tonight. And get your mailbag questions in. You can send us mailbag questions anytime at SportsDayTB, at NFL Stroud, or my email address is rstroud@tampabay.com. First day of training camp. Check out tampabay.com and the Tampa Bay Times for all the latest on that. I'll be out there bright and early. 8:30 a.m. is the first practice. Well, there's only one practice, but it is practice. And hopefully we'll get a little rain. I'll be indoors. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. In the meantime, go see our friends at Breitling Boutique International Plaza Mall. Check out the beautiful watches they have. Their NFL collection, all 32 teams, are while supplies last. It's Breitling Boutique International Plaza. Make sure you let them know that you heard about it right here on Sports Day Tampa Bay. For Steve Versnick, I'm Rick Stroud of the Tampa Bay Times. Have a great day, everybody.